he wanted me to speak about a specific topic in high schools. But before I begin on that, I wanted to ask how many of you are actually given khutbahs in high school? Raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, and the rest of you, what are you giving?
We haven't given anything yet.
Oh, sorry. So I guess I should rephrase my question. How many of you are planning to give khutbahs in high school? Okay, and the rest of you, where are you planning to give your khutbahs? Just so I know.
At work.
At work, okay. Where else?
University.
University, okay. University. University. In a small musalla. Okay, good.
Junior high.
Junior high. Okay, yeah, junior high counts too. University. University. Okay. Okay, alhamdulillah. So, just to provide a brief background on myself, I went to Harry Ainley High School. Anyone here from Harry Ainley? Anyone graduated from Harry Ainley? 2? Anyone still in Harry Ainley? Yeah, 2 of you? Alright. Hide and pride, boys.
Should have done much better today.
One of the things, I went to school, I'm dating myself now, this was 13 years ago. 13 years ago, Harry Ainley was one of the maybe 1 or 2 schools in all of Edmonton that was doing the Jummah khutbah. So in many ways, Harry Ainley was a pioneer in giving Jummah khutbahs. Alhamdulillah. I myself actually came closer to Islam and became involved in da'wah work as part of the Jummah khutbah program. I remember coming into grade 10 and meeting a bunch of brothers that were very active in high school, that were organizing things. But you know, one of the key things, and this is the first thing I'm going to touch upon, is that what brought me into the fold was not just the Jummah khutbah. Jummah khutbah helped. But alhamdulillah, the brothers who were doing Jummah khutbah or who were organizing the da'wah work in Harry Ainley, they understood that we're not just here to deliver a Friday sermon. Right? Because you have to understand the reality of high school is very different. It's not like university. It's not like university where you come into the MSA and you have hundreds and thousands of Muslims. You have a very active MSA. All these events are going on. You already come in. You're part of the community. You feel like you belong. High school, as I like to call it, and I know it's been 13 years since I graduated, but I guarantee you nothing has changed. It's literally the wild, wild west. Okay? You come into the high school. There's no sense of belonging. Usually, the high school that I went to was 2,500 kids, which was one of the biggest at that time. Now, every high school is 2,500 kids, from what I understand. But I remember going into high school as a grade 10, and even as a grade 11, and the environment was not just un-Islamic, that's one thing. The environment was actually very negative and very counterproductive to being a good student, to being just someone who can be an upstanding citizen. Now, what do I mean by that? So, as a student, forget the fact that I was even a Muslim. As a student coming into high school, I was exposed to things that I hadn't been exposed to yet, right? So when you go into high school, and things I'm sure haven't changed much yet, still haven't changed much, is that there were groups. People were divided based on a number of factors, right? On how people dressed, on who they hung out with, on if they played sports or not. The soccer guys had their own crew. The basketball team had their own crew. We had divisions on the silliest of things. And this is every high school. So a Muslim who walks into this environment to fit in, to have friends, he has to try and fit into one of these groups. And this is the reality of it. Does anybody deny this? Anyone who's in high school, do you guys deny this? Am I speaking something that doesn't make sense? Because if I am, just raise your hand. How many of you said Ainley? Is Rotunda still the coolest place to hang out? The middle thing? Yeah? See? I know. And all the vices happen over there. Things haven't changed, 13 years. The Rotunda was the source of all evil 13 years ago. Things haven't changed. You know the big middle, we used to call it the Rotunda. I don't know what you guys call it now. Is it still called the Rotunda? Alright, yeah, see, I know it. Things haven't changed much. So the role of the Khatib, or the role of whomever is giving da'wah in high school, is not simply to show up on a Friday and give a khutbah and go home. His job is much bigger than that. His job is to foster a community. foster a Muslim community. Because even the purpose of a mosque, what's the purpose of a mosque? Is it simply for Muslims to show up? The Prophet's mosque, was it simply a place where we showed up? Where the Muslims showed up, prayed and left? No, right? The Prophet ﷺ, his mosque was a place, was a community center. The armies would take off from there. He would give lectures over there. It was a place where people would come and seek the Prophet of Allah ﷺ out for help. The mosque was essentially a safe place, where if somebody needed help of any kind, they would go to the mosque. And that has to be the kind of community that we foster in our high schools, because until we're able to build a community where Muslim students want to come, having a Friday prayer will not do much help. I'll give you an example. And mainly when I was there, we had about 500-600 Muslims at least out of 2,500, which is what, 20%, 25%? And yet our Jummah prayers would only attract about 20-25. Where were the other 450 Muslims? They didn't come. They didn't show up. Anyone from Queen Elizabeth High School here? Okay, so Queen Elizabeth High School, anybody know about it? It's like 90% Muslim, right? Literally 2,000 Muslims. And I've given a khutbah there, I get 200. Where are the other 1,800? Where are they? Right? Alhamdulillah, the first time I went to Queenie, I said 200, mashallah, all of the Muslims must be here. And they told me, no, there's 2,000, only 200 showed up, the other 1,800, we don't know where they are. So it comes back to it that the importance of, you cannot emphasize the importance of having a safe place in high schools for the Muslims to come. And it goes beyond just having the Jummah khutbah. The Khatib, who's often, and fortunately or unfortunately, you'll be looked upon. You'll be looked upon as the Khatib, whether we like it or not, as the spokesperson for that high school. Even the Muslim students are going to look up to you. Right? Even the Muslim students are going to look up to you. And it is your role. It is your role, not to make it sound too melodramatic, but it is your role to carry the banner of Islam in that school. And the banner of Islam includes making sure that the people who are looking up to you have someone to turn to when they need help. Just like the companions would go to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ when they were in distress, when they needed help. The Muslims in your school, they need to be able to come to the Friday prayer, or they need to be able to come to a weekly halaqah that you're having, or they need to be able to come to just simply have lunch. I'll tell you something right now. One of the biggest issues, somebody said to me a week ago, they said I was a loner in high school. I said, why would you say that? He's like, well, I ate lunch by myself because I had no one. I had no one to hang out with at lunch, so I ate lunch by my locker, and that's why he said I was a loner, because I had no friends. And I flashed back, because 13 years ago we had the same issue. If you were eating lunch by yourself, you were a loner. That's what people called you. Simply having a day of the week, maybe it's Friday, right? Doesn't even have, maybe it's Friday. We advertise that everybody come have lunch together. Or maybe a Monday, or maybe a Tuesday. All the Muslims just come, we're going to hang out, we're going to have lunch. You're providing a sense of community for people to come. You're providing a place for someone to come and connect to fellow Muslims. Because right now in school, in Harry Ainley, there is no avenue other than that. Or any school, I pick on Harry Ainley because I know Harry Ainley. But any other high school, there is no avenue. We have to create avenues. And if your high school is lucky enough to be getting 90% of the Muslim population for Jummah khutbah, great, build upon that. But if you're like most schools, and the majority of the kids are not coming to Jummah khutbah, we need to do more. What more can that be? Number one, start off with just having lunch together. Don't even have to buy lunch. Tell the Muslims in your school, hey, we're just going to meet on Monday at lunchtime over there. We're just going to sit and eat. It's just a social. No judgment, no looking down upon. Whether you come to Friday prayer or not, just come join us. It's about building a community. And as you sit down and you have lunch together, you'll begin to talk. You'll begin to make friends with each other. You'll begin to connect. Is there still a divide between grade 12s don't hang out with grade 11s and the grade 11s don't hang out with grade 10s? Does that still happen? Yeah?
No, not really.
Not really? Okay, that's good. So there's an intermingling. All right, that's great. That doesn't happen anymore. But this is a great way for you not just to get to know each other. This is a great way for people who are just coming into grade 10 to rely on the ones who already been there in grade 11 and grade 12. And once you begin to do this, you'll realize that your Jummah khutbahs are going to be very successful. Because now the Jummah khutbah is not the main source of you trying to bring people in. Because you have to understand, a lot of the kids who are in high school, they're actually embarrassed most likely to come to the Friday prayer. I know that's a surprise maybe to some of you, but when you're in grade 10 and you're in high school, and somebody let's say you have never really been to Friday prayers, right? You grew up here, nobody told you to go to Friday prayers, you never really went to Friday prayers, you have a Muslim name, so somebody saw a Muslim name and said, hey, come for Friday prayers, you're actually pretty embarrassed, you don't want to go. And this is why most students don't show up, right? Because they've never really been to Friday prayers. Or if they have been, they might have, just sort of like on and off. So they actually feel guilty, they feel bad, they don't really necessarily, they want to go, maybe, but they're scared. So if you have something outside of a Jummah khutbah, even if it's just before the Jummah khutbah, some kind of just social activity, this will go a long way in welcoming the Muslims in your school, telling them that there's a community that they can come and belong to, that they don't have to go and do wrong things or even un-Islamic things to try and fit in. And you'll be surprised at, once people begin to be together, how that builds over time. And we experienced some of that when I was in high school. Alhamdulillah, over time we were able to build. I remember in grade 11, I was in grade 11, we started having regular weekly halaqats, right? And usually we just bring our lunch together. There'd be about 10 of us. I know it's not a big number, but at least there were 10 of us who would come on like a Wednesday or Tuesday, I forget what it was. First, for the first 20 minutes, we'd have lunch together. 25 minutes, we'd eat lunch together, just talk and catch up and how things are going. And then after that, read some Quran. That's all. But it was great. We all loved it. I remember on Eid, sometimes we'd bring in pizza and just have a pizza party. All of these were great ways of building brotherhood and sisterhood amongst each other. And this contributed that by the end, when I started when I was in grade 10, we had about 15 to 20 people attending our Jummah prayers. And then by the 3 years later when I was leaving, not to my efforts, through the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we found that by the end of grade 12, we had about 30 to 40, sometimes up to 50 students. Now, of course, 50 out of 500 is still only 10%. But still, we had built upon from where we had started. So it's very important, and I know it might sound daunting. Right now you're like, I can barely organize Jummah khutbahs in my high school or junior high. You're asking me to do more than that. But it can be very critical. And if anything, it makes your Jummah khutbahs easier to attract people to it. Because one of the things that Brother Ahmed asked me to speak about, he said, how do you attract the students? How do you get them to come? And that's $1 million question, right? Has it ever happened to anyone where you went to give a Jummah khutbah and you're like, I just have one person. Do I even meet the minimum requirements of giving a Jummah khutbah? Has that ever happened to anyone? And it happened to me a lot of times, I remember. And actually, this one brother used to give a Jummah khutbah, and he said one time he went to give a Jummah khutbah. He wasn't in high school, he was coming from outside. And he said, I went there, and there were like 10 sisters and no brothers. And he's like, I didn't really know what to do then. And he's like, I wasn't sure, and this and that. So, a lot of these are happening, a lot of this is happening is because we're focusing on the Jummah khutbah, which is great. We do need to have Jummah khutbahs, but we need to focus on building communities. Right? There's no point of having a mosque if no one's going to show up to the mosque. We have to make, and I'm using the word mosque, but obviously it's just a room in your school where people come and pray. We have to make that space in a way that people want to come there. Okay? Before I move on, any questions on that?
I actually have a point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like me, myself in high school, I didn't go, I usually went to Anur, right beside the
Right.
mosque.
Yes.
So I usually went there for Friday prayers. I never really prayed in high school, like inside.
Did you have a spare?
Like during spare time, like I would use, like tell my teacher that I have to go for Friday prayer.
Right.
And I would just go pray at Anur and come back.
Okay.
That's what I did in high school. And
Right.
that's what most people do in high school. Like my brother, he does the same thing. But
Mhm.
now he's leaving, he wants to leave. So
Yeah, and that's a good short-term solution, but you have to keep in mind that it requires people to have affairs of that kind, or it requires people to miss class of that kind, right? Ideally, we want to have a system in our high schools where people don't have to go take a bus somewhere else. Like it's not even walking distance, you have to take a bus.
10 minute, it's about 10-15 minute walk, but you can take the bus.
You take a bus, yeah. So we want to have it easy that, alhamdulillah, mashallah, you are willing to sacrifice your time and walk in the winter or take the bus, but the majority are not going to do that, right? Does Amy still have 500 Muslims at least, or maybe 1,000
I'm
Muslims?
not there anymore.
You're not there anymore? What about your time?
You have like 2,800 to 900 kids. Out of those, I would say 500 at least.
Yeah, are 500 people taking the bus to, no, they're never going to do that, right? 500 are most likely not even going to show up to the prayer inside the school, but you will get more people coming. And the objective is to make it as easy as possible for the Muslims to pray, and not just pray, to become better Muslims, right? If we're going to ask a person who doesn't even go to Friday prayer to take the bus and go somewhere and pray, he's most likely not going to do it, right? So that's why our focus has to be to establish prayers inside high schools.
It's really hard to attract new students. It's because they think just because, like, say, I'm the person who's inviting people, they would say, oh, you sin, you do that, I've seen you do this, do that. So what's the point of me coming if you're going to do bad stuff?
Right.
That's the biggest concern. It's very
And that's fine. See, they're saying that they're making excuses. That's okay, right? They're making excuses because they don't want to come. And this is why you will get some people. So are there Jummah khutbahs right now mainly?
No, we just pray the Lord.
You just pray Dhuhr.
We don't have a Jummah.
You don't have a Jummah. How many people pray Dhuhr?
We, yeah.
Sorry? 3, 6, 2, 5 sometimes, right? So let's say if you start Jummah khutbah, maybe 3 people show up, right? You continue with it. But maybe one Monday you just tell everyone, hey, we're getting together over here, we're just going to eat food. We're just going to have some pizza, or just bring your lunch. I'm not inviting you to prayer. I'm not telling you to come and follow me or anything. I'm just telling you to come, and we're just going to sit down and eat. That's a hard invitation to say no, right? You're not calling them to any act of worship, right? You're just telling them, hey, come, let's go hang out. We're just going to sit down and eat. Some of them will still say no. Some of them will say yes, right? And that's how you build it. Once they come and they sit down with you, once they get to know you, inshallah, after that they'll sooner or later start coming to Friday prayer. But if you invite them directly to Friday prayer, and these are people that have never really even prayed, don't even know how to do it. I remember I was at work, I was working for a Saskatchewan company, and this was an older Muslim, by the way. This wasn't like a young guy, this guy was like 24 or something. There were 3 Muslims, there were 4 of us. So I said, you know what, there are 4 of us, let's just do a Jummah khutbah, because at that time there was no Musalla in Fort Saskatchewan. One of them, he was 24. Forget prayer, he didn't even know how to do it. He didn't know anything, right? So you have to keep in mind that in high school, most of these kids might have never even attended a Friday prayer of any kind, right? So if you directly go up and be like, hey, let's go attend Friday prayer, they are going to be resistant to it. That's why you invite them to something else, something that they will most likely come to, right? Be it food, be it whatever it is. And then from there, inshallah, you can get them to Friday prayer. Does that help? I know it's easier said than done. I was in your position.
I think the
I
problem is
understand.
like the problem with technology. At your time, like 13 years ago, there weren't that many distractions compared to now. Like technology, everybody's on social media and they're all distracted by that stuff, so they don't really feel like focusing on one certain thing or one task. And that's what I think is the biggest problem now. in 2020.
Actually, 13 years ago it was worse. We didn't have social media, but we still had girls in school.
Yeah, I believe you.
So it was worse, right? At least now people have social media, they're just looking at their phones. Back then, it was sort of worse because you had nothing else to distract you. Yes.
And I think you can actually use this to your side. I mean, people use Facebook and stuff like this to attract people. So if you organize stuff
Or
like
you
this.
can create a page on Facebook.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Have a WhatsApp group. I don't think most high schools use Facebook anymore, right? Most of them use text messaging, Twitter, and WhatsApp.
Yeah, WhatsApp is
Right.
WhatsApp is a great.
Yeah.
You can like have those lunch stuff, share images, stuff like this.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And tell them at least, you know what, don't have to come to Friday prayer. Just come on the group. Just come on the WhatsApp group, right? And then from there you can just share like messages, you can share like some things that you're doing. So they can see, okay, these guys are just, regular people, alhamdulillah, they're trying to do good, they're not like crazy fanatic or anything like that, right? And that goes a long way. I know at Jasper Place, I wish Rafid was here. At Jasper Place, he has a Facebook page, and most of them are on it, and I'm on it, and he uses that to communicate and organize everyone. So alhamdulillah, he has good success with it. But maybe in the other cases, it would be WhatsApp he uses.
I think like one of the biggest challenges would be like you could like say you're organized, people would like very shy to go because like
Yeah.
like almost like what is this? Like they'll
Yeah.
make fun of you or something.
You're right.
So a lot of people are shy to like go
Yeah.
to these things and stuff.
You're right. You're sure it's not cool. It's not cool to go to prayer.
Yeah.
It's straight up. Like there's no denying it. If you're in high school and you're going to prayer and your non-Muslim friends like, where are you going? It takes a lot of guts to be like, I'm going to go pray. It takes a lot of guts, right? And I know some people might laugh at it, but it's actually not funny at all because you're in a imagine. One of the greatest, people, everyone wants to just fit in, right? People want to have friends. And especially in high school, you're like, I want to just fit in and have friends. I'm a Muslim, but I still want to have friends. And many Muslims are afraid that if they tell others they're praying, that people are going to be like, whoa, who prays now? Right? It takes a lot to stand up and say that. And that's why we have to make it easy, right? So if you invite them to like a pizza, or whatever it is, right? Something that's not a prayer. And even if somebody asks them where you're going to, be like, yeah, I'm just going to go have lunch with prayer. A lot easier to say, right? Over time, yes, you want to get them to a point that they will feel strong enough to say, yes, I'm going for prayer. But that's not going to come right away. And that's why you got to make it easy for them. Right? And maybe somebody might, I remember there was this one guy, he would never show up to anything other than when we had free food. He would only show up to free food. Right? It didn't matter. He never showed up to any prayer. He was Muslim. He never came to any Friday prayer, didn't come to any halaqat. Free food, he would be there. Right? We never said anything. We were just happy he's coming and he's associating with us at least. Right? And inshallah, at some point, we can bring him to the Friday prayer. We kept trying, it didn't work, we would keep trying. But there's nothing wrong with that. At least he's associating with us. Associating with the Muslims. Right? It's better than him completely disconnected. And then we never see him. And then he goes and hangs out with God knows who. Any other questions? I have a limitation on time. I have half an hour from the document, so I have to finish in that half an hour. But this is a topic we would go on like a separate session on how to attract students, how to bring them in, and things like that, inshallah. But at least I wanted to start the conversation is that we're building a community. It has to be more than just come and give Friday prayer. There's 2 people there, and then that's it. My job is done. No. Alhamdulillah, Allah has chosen us. He has placed. He has blessed us with this opportunity to work in His path, and inshallah we're going to work hard on this. The second thing I wanted to talk about that Ahmed mentioned is building a relationship with your school is very, very important, right? So why is it important is if the school thinks you're doing something shady, or if they have no idea what you're doing, they can shut you down. And they do have the power to shut you down. I remember when we were at Ainley, they raised issues with us. I only keep using Ainley because I went there, right? So they raised an issue with us. They said they've had bad experiences in the past. So they're okay with us having prayer, but you cannot have Khatib coming from outside. Right? They said they don't know who's coming in, they can't trust the people, at least the ones who are in school, we know you, we can trust you. It actually, we tried to push back and we said, no, we need people in from outside. It went back and forth. It didn't really work out, but then the next year we had a new principal and he was more relaxed. But the moral of the story is that schools do have the power to shut you down. So you want to make sure that you develop a relationship so the administration, the principal staff, the executive staff know who you are and what you're doing. The first thing you want to do is, at least on Friday, dress well. Okay? You can imagine if you show up to your principal with pants halfway down to your knees and tell him you're planning to start a Friday prayer, he's going to laugh at you. Right? Or if you show up in a dress that doesn't exactly speak well, they're not going to take you seriously. It's natural. Right? If I had showed up here and I'm giving a talk and I'm dressed up in torn jeans, some of you might be like, do I really want to listen to this guy? So how you dress does make a difference. I'm not saying you need to dress up in a suit or even like dress shirt and dress pants, but you need to dress up in a way that is respectable. Right? Other days maybe you can dress up as however you want. But on the day of Friday, when you're going to see the administration, or you're going to talk to the principal, or any day you're going to meet him, make sure you dress well. Number 2, don't assume he knows things. Right? On your first meeting, I would suggest that you sit down with him and explain to him, as a Muslim, what are just the basics of Islam. Just the basics of Islam, why Friday prayer is important. Right? To many of them, it might be like, why do you need to have Friday prayer? It's like Sunday church service. Some go, some don't. Right? But if you explain to them how Friday prayer is an obligation upon the Muslims, and we have to do it in a congregation, we can't do it separately, and it has to be done at a specific time. If you explain this in a polite manner and in a concise manner without confusing them, then it goes a long way. Otherwise, if you assume that they know, most of them do not. Right? Most of them will not have come across this. I remember I was asked to come and give, there's Edmonton Public Schools has a every school has a professional development day. They asked me to come and speak on Islam for teachers. So this is like hundreds of teachers from across Edmonton had come to this professional PD day, right? You guys get 2 days off for PD day, and you're like, where do these teachers go? That's where they go, right? They have a big convention, and there's 50, 60 speakers who are lined up, and they come and talk, and the teachers can sign up. The talk on Islam was the most attended. Over 100 people were sitting on the floor. Part of the reason is people don't know about Islam. All they've heard is what's on the media, and this includes the teachers and the principals and the admin staff, right? So many of them are actually very curious and eager to sit down with someone and explain to them, like, authentically, what is Islam? What is it that you guys do? What is this prayer saying? Friday prayer, 5 times a day prayer. They're actually very eager to listen to it. So if you can sit down with your principal, with the school principal, the assistant principal, or whomever it is who's like a liaison between you and the principal, and explain this goes a long, long way. So that's number 2. I saw a hand up there. Did you have a question? No. You sure? You're good. Okay. The third thing is make sure that you let them know what exactly it is that you're doing. Okay? So if you need a room, right, you're going to need a room. If you need when you need a room, tell them, we need a room between 12 to 1 on Fridays, or 1 to 2, or whatever the timings are. And we need this room so it can fit 15 people or 20 people. And we need this room so we can move the furniture around and have an open space. Be very clear and concise with what the requirements are. Right? And don't be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with this. You'll find, I remember, I used to deal with the assistant principal at Harry Indy. And him and I actually developed a very good relationship. He was a practicing Mormon who had 10 kids, mashallah. So, he used to drive like a big, huge van. So he was a practicing Mormon, he could relate to me. Because to him it was like, hey, you know what? You're also a man of religion, right? So he appreciated what I was doing. To him, actually most of the principals will appreciate what you're doing. You'll find the odd principal that might give you a hard time. The majority of them will appreciate it because to them they know that whatever it is that you're doing, at least the kids are better off praying than they are out causing trouble in the school during lunchtime. Right? Or going out and smoking outside the school or hanging out at the mall. So most of the principals will genuinely, or the staff will genuinely appreciate. What makes a difference, by the way, is before you approach the principal, if you can talk to a teacher, because usually teachers have homerooms, right? Each teacher has a classroom. if you can talk to someone who's willing to sponsor you, willing to give up her classroom or his classroom. So if you already have that in your back pocket, it makes a big difference when you meet the principal and you're like, hey, I know Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, and they're willing to give up their classroom between 12 and 1. Right? That makes the principal's job easy, makes your job easy to organize khutbah. Do you still have a room at Indy or no?
We have a room.
You have one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, approach a teacher that you're on good terms with. Someone, if you're a Muslim teacher, that's the first. Anyone have Muslim teachers in their schools? Yes?
Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, you have a Muslim teacher. So that'd be the first thing to approach, right? But depending on the teacher, he or she might not be comfortable. If that doesn't work out, then approach a teacher that you are in good that you're on good terms with. Right? So maybe you do well in her class or do well in his class. So if you go out, they're like, oh yeah, you get a 95% in my class. I'm willing to make this exception for you. Yeah.
Before I started going to Al-Nur, we had this room, I was in grade 10.
Yeah.
And the teacher that had this room, he was really grumpy. He did not like the Muslims to come in this room and pray for holidays. So eventually they shut it down.
Right.
That's when I started going to Al-Nur.
I see.
Because of that reason. Because some of my friends told me that there was Friday prayer happening in the school.
Right.
But then it closed down.
I see.
So, and then I started going to Al-Nur.
Okay.
But there's rooms in Al-Ilmi that they offer Friday prayer, but I
Right.
don't think they exist anymore.
Which is sad because we had Friday prayers at Indy for 25 years. It started in the early 1980s and it continued till at least 2005, 2006. So, it makes me sad to hear that it got shut down. It's almost like a mosque shutting down. You'd be sad, right? So, someone had another question? No? Okay. So approach a Muslim teacher. If that doesn't work, approach a teacher you have a good relationship with. Because if the teacher is okay with you using their class, the principal most of the time will not have an issue. Okay. I remember the teacher who used to sponsor us at Indy. He wasn't Muslim, but he was from Kenya, which has a big Muslim population. So he knew about the Muslims and he knew about. So he was very understanding and accommodating, and he didn't mind us using his room. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Go to your social studies teacher. They deal with world anyways, right? The topic is the world, so yeah.
Was it Mr. Powell?
Powell? No, it wasn't Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell's from Jamaica. Come on, you should know that. Mr. Powell's not from Kenya. He was the track coach.
Who was your teacher you went to?
He's not there anymore. His name is Malcolm Azania.
Out of curiosity, who was your principal at that time?
I had like 3 principals in 3 years. I forget right now.
Was there Oscar Boyki at that time?
Sorry?
Mr. Oscar Boyki?
Maybe, I don't even remember, to be honest. So alhamdulillah, this is a very short and concise talk that I wanted to give on building a relationship with your students, with the Muslim students in your school, and building a relationship with the admin, which is very critical in your school. Do not ever try to have a prayer without letting your admin know. That is one of the worst things you can do, because what will happen is when they do find out, they'll actually be really upset that you did something unauthorized in the school. And that'll get you started off on the wrong foot. You don't want to do that. Approach the principal or approach the assistant principal from the very beginning. And do it in a professional manner, or do it in a manner that they would respect. Right? And as I said, dress nice, go in, be concise, explain as Muslims we're supposed to do, and make a request. And if you can, make sure you get the names, if you can, before you go in and talk to your principal, is get the names of 15, 20, 25 Muslim students so you can show them, hey, I have 25 students in this school, at least maybe even 50, 60, more the better, who would like to have a prayer room. It builds your case. So it shows them it's not just Muhammad or Abdullah walking in, and it's just one person, but it's actually a lot of students in their school, inshallah. Okay. I have to stop here at 6:45. Any last questions?